If you're looking for a fun on-field DPS in the style of Anomaly, look no further than Jane Doe. In this video, I want to share with you a balanced review, not only just talking about the hype about this character, I also want to tell you about some cons and limitations to her overall playstyle for you to make a balanced decision. Now, first of all, thank you so much for Hoyoverse letting us use the creator server to test her out. Final numbers, the numbers that you see on the screen are likely to change, but anyways, let's get into the video and let's start off with the first pros of Jane Doe. Now, Jane Doe is extremely fun to play. That's not only just a pro, but if you are looking for a playstyle that is very fast, keeps you super engrossed. Most of the times when I'm playing like Zenless Zone 0 with Ellen or Zhu Yuan, I'm thinking about when am I rotating to my next character so that I can continue my chain loop to do my damage, stun the enemies with Lycan, support, buff my Ellen together with Sokaku. But for Jane Doe, when I'm testing her, all I want to do is play her as long as I can. I don't even care about the other characters on my team like Grace as well as Seth. She's just so fun to play and very mesmerizing. For any of you who like a character like that, you're looking for one character to play, you like playing characters for a very long period of time, don't really like switching out too much, Jane Doe is super nice for this playstyle. Very fun to play. The next thing about her is she doesn't care too much about stun as well. Everywhere you hear Ting Yi is like number 1 or Lycan is like number 1, everyone say you need a stun attack combo. Jane Doe is actually the first character in the game that kinda doesn't care too much about stun, and the reason for that is she benefits from actively dodging enemies. When the enemies are stunned, you cannot dodge because nothing is hitting you if you're like fighting one-on-one big boss. Jane Doe actually rewards enemies for not being stunned, so it's like the opposite now. Every time she does perfect dodges, she stacks up her passive, which is called Passion Stream, which increases her overall damage when she's in this like passion state, which helps her increase build up, increases her attack as well. A lot more damage that she gets when she's in this state, as well as her attacks also become like slightly different in animations too. So she actively really rewards dodging, which means doesn't care too much about stun. It is nice. Stun is definitely good for her because she does more damage and stuff, but doesn't really care too much about it to the extent that she must live with it, unlike like a lot of other DPS characters, crit characters who really rely on that stun window, especially if enemies don't get stunned in future. Jane Doe might be a hitch, especially against enemies who just are much more difficult to stun in future if there's a boss like that. What this allows you, other than just not caring about stun, it allows you a lot of flexibility to build in your last slot. Anomaly characters tend to like to go 2 in a pair, so you want to run like, for example, a Grace, for example, a Jane, or eventually like Bernice when they come out all different Anomaly elements. And then the last slot, now that you don't have to have too much stun, you can actually run a lot of supportive characters. For instance, Seth, which helps like buff Anomaly based damage, gives you a lot of protection as well. It's a bit more flexible rather than forcing you to run in the last slot a stun character because of the requirements, like if your main DPS needs stun too much. So that's the second plus that I have. A third plus, and then we'll come on to a bit of neutral points already, so I don't like hard sell you anything. I want to keep it balanced review as always we do on the channel. She is a very strong main DPS style, Jane Doe. If you are a player who doesn't have a main DPS, for example like Ellen, for example like Zhu Yuan, yet in the game you didn't pull for them at 1.0, you maybe are playing with a Piper team, you don't really have her too well invested, Jane Doe definitely feels a lot better to play than Piper, a lot more flexible in terms of mobility, but does want a little bit more field time compared to Piper on field, but rewards you for that as well. So very strong main TBS style of playing style with massive amounts of assault damage. Those of you who like big PP damage, you get it with this character because she's able to make that assault, the base damage has a chance of critting, and of course higher chance if you build her for very high anomaly proficiency. This means you get big PP screenshot damage for your assault. Lots of people are just going to put it on their thumbnails, maybe like 200k, 300k assault damage with Jane Doe, and you can be prepared for that. This is very nice because anomaly characters generally you have very small instances of damage, so a very huge crit payoff does make it seem a little bit more enjoyable to play rather than like always having like small instances of damage, because anomaly characters tend not to crit and they just do like small instances until you get the big anomaly payoff as well. As promised, let's talk a bit about a neutral point. I put this as an equal, not really pro, not really con, because it can go either way. She is a character that needs good hands and non-lazy gamers. Myself, a little bit more on the lazy end, but why do I say that is her whole kit requires you to dodge enemies and tap your basic attack rather than lazily like hold it down and then just like spam it and like hold it in between. Why do I say that is when she's in her passion stream state, you can accidentally tap or hold to use her one of the special abilities that she has, that spinny kick that she does. This thing can accidentally be held at the wrong time, released. You only have it once every passion stream. And for those of you who don't like to think about when to use this like special strike, it might get into a little bit of way of maximizing your DPS with this character. And she's definitely a character that also has to think about enemies, which is probably the first negative that I want to talk about now, moving from this portion into the next part, which is learning enemy mechanics. For those of you who don't really care too much about like learning enemy mechanics, Jane Doe is a character that really requires you that. Dodge takes 2 hands to clap. You need to, one, not only react fast to dodge, but second thing, you also need a bit of anticipation to understand when the enemy is going to do certain strikes, certain moves that he does, because if you can dodge everything, you get even more passive bump to your passion stream. It helps you increase your overall damage. Jane Doe requires you to dodge as much as you can to maximize your overall damage. So that's the first downside that I want to talk about. She does require you to understand enemy mechanics. For those of you who don't, you might find this character a little bit trickier to play at her full potential as well. Now, back to a bit of plus. Let's like try to bounce in between them. She has great mobility. Her dodging is fantastic. She feels like she can phase through enemies like small monsters and even obstacles as well. Her passion stream like dodge is like a phase through kind of thing, allowing you to like get away from tight spots. For those of you who don't know, sometimes maybe you're fighting a game, you get pushed into a corner. This allows you to like free yourself from the corner very quickly and reposition for preventing damage or preparing to deal some damage or getting into a nice area and doing an AoE damage with other characters and stuff. So very, very great mobility from that sense in terms of maximizing her dodge together with her walking ability. The second negative that I want to cover is she is actually pretty fragile to play. Characters, for example, like Ellen, for Chu-Yan, who has a bit of range, you can wait for the enemy to go enrage, get them out, and then after that you go in to do your damage string, especially Chu-Yan is like slightly from range, so you avoid a lot of damage. Jane Doe, on the other hand, wants to be in the thick of every fight because she wants to dodge and fight at the same time. Naturally, this means higher room for error. You can get hit from time to time if you mistime it, and your HP bar just feels like it's not enough most of the time, especially if you do not run with a shielder. She is fragile, and she does want and benefit a little bit from some sort of sustained damage mitigation character, for example like Seth, in this case, who also is able to buffer at the same time. 1 or 2 mistakes definitely can be felt. Definitely supports that shield will help her in future. If you have new characters that shield and even buff her in some way, will definitely be very beneficial for her playstyle as well. Another negative, the third one, and this is the last negative for this balance review before we talk about something on a closing note. There are not many too many compositions available for her. She is a main DPS that likes a lot of fail time, and she's anomaly based. This is very restrictive already because if you look at the first aspect of physical characters in the game, Nekomata, Corrin, Billy, all these kind of characters right now in the game, they are all physical in element. Every single one of them likes to take out a lot of fail time, which means she doesn't have access to a lot of assault teams that fit her playstyle. And until we have them in future, she's likely going to be feeling a bit restrictive in the double physical slots and point of view. Other than that, she wants anomaly-based characters of other elements, and currently the only one of other element actively we probably have is Grace. Piper is of course very on-field as well, and she is of the same element. So Grace is probably the only alternative, and she's a little bit hard to get since she is a standard 5-star Grace. So you need a little bit of luck, or you need to get that 300 pulls and pick her up. At this stage, most free-to-play players might not have that 300 yet. So that is 2 things that's already working against Jane Doe at this present moment in version 1.1. Not only that, she's a main DPS in nature, so if you already have like a lot of other main DPS, you're definitely going to be finding it more restrictive to fit everything in the same time. That is my opinions right now. Of course, in the future, more characters come into the game, you can definitely benefit. She can definitely benefit from it. She will likely improve a lot as more anomaly, more physical supports come in. Upside is definitely there for this unit, so I think that is a very, very huge positive for her in the long run, but current state, a little bit bleak. The last but not least I want to talk about for a positive is she is very flexible, additional ability to build around. Anomaly units, she can play with any of them and get her additional ability proc, as well as the same faction. Unlike other anomaly units, for example like Grace does want to have like at least same attributes, so like double electric. So if you're playing like a rainbow team of all different elements, you will not get Grace additional ability, but in future, if you want to scale up to a triple anomaly kind of teams, Jane is there for you. Jane is able to do that as well if you want to do that. Overall, what is my rating? I think I'll give Jane Doe at this point of time a 6 out of 10. She could go a lot higher if there were a much better team composition cast right now, but still, she's a great solid cast, a character for anyone who's looking for a main DPS and doesn't mind trying out Anomaly playstyle. Super fun, but does need a little bit more support from the future luck and better roster to coming into the game in order for me to rate her higher and saying that she's like a mainstay in every single team. That's honest opinion of mine. And if you appreciate such honest content, I do this every single patch. Like and subscribe for more of such future content. Regardless, I'm going to be pulling her on my account and I'll also be doing a build guide and team composition for you, so stay tuned to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video.